This is the video replication for Lecture Prep 2 for the St. Louis University course Introduction to GIS. Today we're getting started with notebooks in RStudio. So here we have RStudio's macOS interface. That's very similar to how it should appear on Windows as well. Each assignment we do this semester using R and RStudio should be completed using a notebook. We'll talk in class more about how and why we use notebooks. But to get started, just to create a very simple one, we're going to go up to the File menu and select New File and then R Notebook. This will add a document over where the console had been on the left side of the screen. Notice how the console has been pushed down to the bottom. RStudio is very customizable. You can reconfigure how the user interface is laid out, including moving the different panes around or splitting the left side so that the console and any open documents split and share that space. There's also another way to create new notebooks. We can close this notebook without saving it and go up to the toolbar to the very left-hand side and pull down the New Document menu. It's a small white document with a green plus sign. And then from there, we can select our notebook. You'll notice lines 1 and 4 contain 3 dashes each. In between is what we call a YAML header. YAML, or Y-A-M-L, stands for Yet Another Markup Language, and it's designed to provide metadata about our file. Pieces of information like the file's title, who wrote it, when it was written, and how we want the output to appear. We'll start by changing the title from our notebook to Lecture Prep 02 Notebook. We'll also add a new row for author and then enter our own name in it. So I will put my name in. Finally, we'll add a dynamic date field. This will update the document's date to the current date each time we create output. The syntax looks a little wacky here with the apostrophes, backticks, and double quotes. Pay extra attention to how they're ordered. And if you want a very clear example, there's a replication file in the Lecture 02 GitHub repository. Also pay attention to how RStudio will try and help you by adding the closing parentheses and double quotes for you. Pay attention to this behavior because it's easy to forget that RStudio is doing this and accidentally add too many closing parentheses or extra double quotes, which will cause errors. The syntax itself is an instruction to take the computer's system time, so the time that appears on the clock, and insert it in a particular way. The word for the month, then the number of the day, and then the 4-digit year. Finally, we're going to change our output settings. We'll keep the HTML notebook, but we want to place it on its own line and indent it 4 spaces. We'll add a colon to the end of the HTML notebook instruction and the word default. This will ensure that the notebook is created automatically each time we save the document. We'll also add a second type of output, a GitHub document, and set that to default as well. We'll discuss the GitHub document option more in class. When we save the document, as I'll do here, an HTML file gets created that we can use to preview our work. We can click on it in the File System tab and choose View in Web Browser to check this preview out. You'll notice that RStudio adds some preview language for you, which is written using something called Markdown. This is a really simple markup syntax that allows us to specify rich text formatting in a plain text environment. We'll talk about this more as the semester progresses. There's also a code chunk highlighted with a gray background with some test code in it. We can execute that code by clicking on the green play button on the very right-hand side of the code chunk. You'll notice that the plot appears directly below the code chunk inside the notebook. To add new code chunks, we can go up to the document's toolbar to the Insert button, pull down its menu, and choose R. Following the assignment instructions, we'll delete the entire body of the document and add a second-level heading for the introduction. Each notebook should begin with a simple one-sentence statement about what it accomplishes. When we've written our introduction, we'll add a second heading below it. Each notebook will need this syntax in the very first code chunk. This is really important, otherwise it won't work correctly. We'll add a new code chunk using the insert button. We also want to name this code chunk. We'll call it setup, and then add the following line of code. This code uses the here package to set up our notebook for use in the folder hierarchy we'll be using for each assignment this semester. And there we have it. We've created our very first notebook. Make sure to save it again before you close it.